Hi, hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to record this video in one take because my battery is on one little bar, but I'm here to talk about the fiction books I read in November because it also was nonfiction November, and I did only get to 3 of those, spoiler alert, but I love them and I want to talk about them in more depth, so I'm gonna have a separate video. So I'm just gonna do my fiction reads, and okay, that's it. So, I Think I Might Love You by Christina C. Jones, which was the final one, I believe, in the Love Sisters series, which is like a spin-off, is connected to the Wright brothers, but these are all novellas. The Wright brother ones are full-length novels, I believe, but these are all novellas, and that is overall my biggest complaint with all 3 of these. They were just too short. I still really love this one. I think my favorite is still the first one. I can't remember what sister that is, but I connected to her the most. She had the best love cute, the best meet cute, but I mean, I still enjoyed this one. Love seeing the sisters, and then when they meet up with the rest of the members of the family that we've seen in the previous books and in the Wright brother books. So still love that, still enjoyable. Love the audiobooks, their own script, and excited to read more from Christina C. Jones. After reading that, I was in the mood for romance, and The Love Hypothesis came in from the library. Many of you know how I felt about that. If you don't, I'll link the video up above, but it was not my cup of tea. It was not as good to me as everyone else said, so that got me out of the romance mood. I was like, never mind, I don't want to read any more romance right now. But then I read Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. Oh my god, amazing. So this is a thriller, and the premise of the story is you have a black father, a white father, and they both have their own issues and preconceived notions, but their sons were married and then they were murdered. And now they are working together to seek vengeance and figure out what happened to their boys. And on this journey, they just learn a lot about each other and themselves, and, you know, come to terms with what kind of men they have been, what kind of fathers they were. They just learn a lot. It's so good. The audio was amazing. I love the voice for, I can't remember if his name was Jesse. Oh no, his name was Buddy Lee. And I think it's set in Virginia. So of course there's lots of mentions about homosexuality, or really homophobia and racism, and just, you know, a lot of stereotypes and things that they felt before when their sons were alive, and now all of the things they realize and of course regret now just realizing after their sons are gone, because of course they can't tell them these things or, you know, apologize for certain things. It was amazing. Everyone should read it. Phenomenal. I hope it wins the mystery thriller Goodreads Choice Award because it's so good, and I've heard that his first book, Blacktop Wasteland, I think it's called, is really great as well, so I definitely want to read that one. But please, please, please read this book. It was a 5-star for me if you couldn't tell. I am so lazy. They're on my shelf, but I'm just gonna put up a picture here. So I did a reread of Skyward and also Starsight by Brandon Sanderson in preparation for Cytonic, which is the most recent release in the series. And so Skyward, I think my first read, I loved Skyward, but I think I gave it 4.5, and I loved Starsight. I gave it a 5. On my reread, it's different. I loved Skyward even more. I gave it a 5, and Starsight I gave like a 4.5. And the Skyward series is Brandon Sanderson's young adult science fiction series. So our main character, Spencer, they're like on this planet, but they're kind of trapped there. They're fighting this alien force. She wants to become a pilot. Her dad was branded as a coward, and so that's following her around and making her journey to becoming a pilot even more difficult. And the reason I loved Skyward more on this reread, I think, is since I really appreciated the group dynamic, the friendships, and it's not so much, I guess you could kind of call it found family, because they're all these people who most of them didn't know each other before they're getting into this flight school, and now they're having to learn about each other, learning how to get along, and I just loved that group dynamic. And I love Mbot, of course, and Doomslug, and I just loved being there in Detritus. And then Starsight, not a spoiler, but she leaves the planet, so it expands the world. Our main character goes somewhere different, where it's mainly just her, and she does meet people there, and so I still like that kind of group dynamic, but I wanted her to be back with her original crew from the first one. But I still really enjoy both of those. And then also, I recently learned that there were 2 novellas that were put out that you're supposed to read before going into Cytonic. So those were called Sunreach and Redawn. So technically Redawn I finished on December 2nd, so I won't talk about it here, but I really enjoyed that one. And I also really loved, excuse me, Sunreach. And normally I'm not a big like novella in a series reader. I'll often skip them, but these I feel like are really necessary before you read Cytonic because crucial things happen in both of these novellas. And so we were talking about it when we did the live show on Elle's channel, that we felt like maybe the novellas should have been their own book and like push Cytonic back, because some people skipped them, and Elle and I both felt like, no, you really need to read the novella. So if you haven't read Cytonic yet, I would recommend that you read Sunreach and then Redawn before, because important stuff happens, and then read Cytonic. But anyway, I enjoyed my reread of the first 2 books, and then I really enjoyed Sunreach, and then the Cytonic and Redawn, I didn't finish until December, so I guess you won't hear about that until I do my December wrap up. Then I read Iron Widow by Zirin J. Zhao. And I mainly heard about this book from Twitter, and I just kept seeing people share the author's tweets and like fan art and tweets about polyamory. And I was like, huh? Because the author is like, a love triangle, no, a polyamorous relationship. And I was like, sign me up, because I'm so sick of love triangles. And anyway, I read it. Did I read it? Yes, I read it. I overall really enjoyed it. It was a really quick read. It is science fiction, not fantasy. And so I think it's important you go in knowing that. And it is so the main character, I believe this is Chinese, like inspired, and she's had her feet bound like they used to do. And one thing, just to mention that, because listening to it or reading it, I just was like, ow, it made me physically hurt. And there's not a lot of options for women in her village. And so you either, you get married, or you go off to become basically like this concubine, but it's like a concubine for, I don't even know how to explain it. In my mind, I was seeing like the big Power Ranger things or a Transformer, because it basically have these big like fighting bot things that people man. So they always have a man, but then they also need a woman to basically like suck her life force out of her to use it to pilot these things. It's wild, but a really fun concept. And I don't know what they're supposed to look like, but I have a vision in my mind. And so those are really her choices: become that concubine or get married. And so she goes off because she is seeking revenge. And so there is a polyamorous relationship. I will say that while some of this is more darker, maybe upper young adult, the relationship part did feel a little younger because it was pretty rushed. I know someone said that the author was told by their publisher it had to cut out some parts of the book. It was longer, but they were mostly the dark parts, so I don't know if there was any relationship development in that part. But I mean, I still like the idea. I just wish it had developed more. And then I was really enjoying it. I will say towards the end, there was a lot going on where I was like, okay, we're getting kind of wild. We're getting kind of wild and wacky. But then like the last part, like the final thing that's going to catapult you into knowing there's going to be a sequel and needing a sequel, I was on board for. I can be very hard to please with how cliffhangers are used in books. But this one, I was like, oh snap. So definitely reading the second one. I think it was a really fun read. I know some people didn't love maybe how wild and wacky it was getting, and I will say part of it, I was like, all right, we're doing a lot here. But it worked for me for the most part. Definitely intrigued to see the next one. And I would like the publisher to stop making the author cut out the dark stuff. Give us the dark stuff. Gosh. I read The Dragon Reborn, which is the third in the Wheel of Time. I started out really strong with this one, was really enjoying it because we don't get a lot of Rand, amen. And there was more Perrin in the beginning. I know a lot of people love Perrin. I still feel like he's giving me that whiny, reluctant, chosen one vibe. And I'm like, get over it. Okay, we're in the third book. I need you to get it together. But the parts of the book where we're with mainly the ladies, loved those parts because I just love the journey that they're on, and when they're at the White Tower and the parts with the Aes Sedai, I love all of that. And then when we would go back to like Perrin, I'm like, eh. And then of course, you know, Lan and Moraine, but I don't feel like you get a lot of them. So I still really enjoyed it overall, and like interested where this is going from where it ended, and you know, somebody who came back who I'm very suspicious of and still suspicious of, and I can't figure out who they are or what their purpose is. Actually, that happened with a couple people that you were like, came from a different book, you haven't seen them in a while. Of course, Loyal. We didn't get to see Loyal as much because I felt like we were with the ladies more of the book, which is sad because Loyal was not with the ladies, but I still love Loyal. But I love the ladies like following their story more. And of course, well, not of course, but if you saw, I did put up a video asking for feedback on if I should continue with the Wheel of Time. The general consensus was to at least read the 4th book. And I figure I've already read 3. I'm very interested in some stories, and so my library has them here on base and I can borrow the audio. So I'm going to read the 4th book and then I'll see where I'm going. I'm taking it book by book. I'm not committing myself to all 1900 books in the series, but yeah, I'm gonna read the 4th one. So the next one was a patron pick for me to read to review, and it was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, which I have heard about for years as, you know, like a must read if you like books with dark academia trope. Is it a trope? Is it a subject? Whatever. If you like books that have kind of that dark academia feel. And so I finally was gonna get to it because they voted for it and I was really excited. I did not know, because I don't read much of a synopsis because I feel like they give away too much. So I didn't know this one was focused around Shakespeare. And I think that's a big part of why I didn't love it. Even though I did read some reviews from people who said they hadn't read a lot of Shakespeare and they loved it, but I'm not like some huge Shakespeare fan. I read whatever I read in school. I've always loved the plays, like seeing plays or like adaptations. What is my favorite one? With Denzel and Keanu and Much Ado About Nothing. Oh my God, one of the best. But this is focused at a school that's like, it's like a special school for people of the arts. So it's not necessarily like a normal university where you like get a degree. It's kind of like you just get your certificate, but it was supposed to be so esteemed that like once you come out of there, people in your industry are going to hire you because you know, you're at this prestigious place. So it's following these group of like 5, 6, 7 kids who are all in the theater department, and all they do is Shakespeare. Like that's it. And so there's a lot of like parts of the sonnets and stuff in the book, and I just didn't care. And I switched midway between reading the ebook and listening to the audio because I was like, I don't want to read this anymore. And this listening to it, I don't know. I just felt like that there a twist that I didn't like. There's certain twists in like mystery thriller books that I feel like just don't work well for me. And one is like a mental health twist, which this wasn't that. And another one, I feel like it would be spoilery to this one, so I won't say it, but did not like that. Overall, I never cared really about the characters or like the main character, and I just never felt invested in the story. Like, I guess some of the descriptions about the setting were good to like put you there on a college campus and stuff, but it was like, I don't know, you know at the beginning who dies, and then of course it's going through to figure out who did it, but it was told in a way of one of the characters who went to prison for the murder, but so you already know he didn't do it. And it's kind of going back and looking back at the time to figure out what really happened. I just didn't care at all. I was bored, uninterested. It wasn't compelling to me. And so I think a lot of that could be to do with the Shakespeare, but then also just, I don't know if the structure of the story worked for me. I'm so sorry, but I did not love it, so yikes. Wow, besides nonfiction, I think that's it that I read. I thought I had read more, but apparently not. So my battery's about to die, so that is the quickest wrap up I've ever filmed. So anyway, tell me any of your thoughts if you've read any of these, or did you have any standouts for November? Look for my nonfiction November video coming soon. But that's it for me. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, check out my description box for information, links to my social media, and I hope you stay hydrated, blessed, moisturized, and sunscreen, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.